Imagine being offered $10,000 to pretend to be someone you're not for just one night. Marisol Rivera, a humble housekeeper, never expected her boss, the renowned Dr. Hale, to make such an offer. But what happened at that charity gala changed everything, not just for Marisol, but for everyone who witnessed it. Before we dive into this incredible story, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. $10,000. All I had to do was wear a dress and smile for one evening. I was scrubbing the marble countertops in Dr. Hale's pristine kitchen when she walked in, her heels clicking against the Italian tiles like a metronome. After 3 years of cleaning her penthouse, I knew her routines better than my own heartbeat. Tuesday mornings meant she'd grab her black coffee, check her phone, and disappear into her home office without so much as a glance in my direction. But today was different. She actually stopped, and looked at me. "Marisol," she said, her voice carrying that crisp authority that made hospital staff jump. "I need to speak with you." My hands froze on the granite surface. Had I broken something? Missed a spot? In 3 years, our conversations never extended beyond "good morning," and "the cleaning supplies are running low." "Yes, Dr. Hale?" I managed, my accent thicker when I was nervous. She set her coffee cup down with deliberate precision. Everything about Hale was deliberate, from her perfectly styled blonde hair to her tailored suits that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. "I have a proposition for you." She paused, and for the first time since I'd known her, she seemed uncertain. "It's unconventional." I waited, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird. "There's a charity gala this Saturday. The annual Medical Excellence Awards. She cleared her throat. "I need a companion." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. A companion? Dr. Hale? The woman who graced magazine covers and had her pick of anyone in the city? "I don't understand," I whispered. She turned away, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the Manhattan skyline. "There have been rumors about my personal life. My colleagues seem to think that because I'm not married, because I don't parade around with a different man every month, there's something wrong with me." Her reflection in the glass looked vulnerable, almost fragile. It was jarring to see cracks in the armor of someone I'd always viewed as untouchable. "The hospital board will be there, important donors. I can't afford to give them any more ammunition." She turned back to me, her green eyes intense. "I need someone who won't ask questions, won't expect anything beyond that one evening." My mouth went dry. "Dr. Hale, I'm just your housekeeper. I don't know anything about fancy parties or—" $10,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $10,000. Enough to pay off Mama's medical bills. Enough to fix the leak in our apartment ceiling. Enough to maybe, finally, breathe. $10,000, she repeated, watching my face carefully. "For one evening. You'd be my guest, nothing more. We'd arrive together, stay for the dinner and speeches, and leave. 3 hours, maximum." I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. "Why me?" Something flickered across her features. Surprise, maybe? As if no one had ever asked her why before. "Because you're—" She searched for words. "You're real. Genuine. You don't want anything from me except a paycheck. And you do your job without trying to impress me or get closer to my world. Real." The word echoed in my head. In her world of surgical precision and calculated moves, I was real. "I would need to think about it," I said, though my heart was already screaming, yes. "Of course." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "My personal number is on the back. Let me know by tomorrow evening." She started to leave, then paused at the doorway. "Marisol?" Her voice was softer now, almost hesitant. "If you say yes, I'll arrange for everything. Dress, shoes, hair, makeup. You won't have to worry about any of that." After she left, I sank into one of her pristine white chairs, the business card trembling in my hands. $10,000 to pretend to be someone I wasn't, to enter a world where I'd never belong. But as I thought about Mama's worried face when the bills came, about my little brother Miguel's worn-out shoes, about the dreams I'd buried under years of cleaning other people's houses, maybe one night of pretending was worth it. I pulled out my phone and stared at her number for a long time before finally typing, "Yes." Her response came within minutes. "Thank you. We'll discuss details tomorrow." I had no idea that saying yes to Dr. Catherine Hale would change everything I thought I knew about myself, about her, and about the invisible lines that separate our worlds. But I was about to find out. The boutique on Fifth Avenue looked like something from a movie, all crystal chandeliers and mirrors that seemed to stretch into infinity. I stood frozen in the doorway, clutching my worn purse like a shield, while perfectly groomed women glided past me like swans. "You must be Marisol." A woman with silver hair and kind eyes approached me. "I'm Eleanor. Dr. Hale sent me to help you prepare for Saturday evening." Eleanor led me through racks of dresses that cost more than my yearly rent. My fingers trembled as I touched the silk and satin, afraid I might somehow damage them just by looking. "Don't be nervous, dear," Eleanor said, pulling out a midnight blue gown that seemed to shimmer with its own light. "Dr. Hale was very specific about what would suit you." Catherine had been here, had thought about what I would look like in these clothes. The dressing room was larger than my bedroom. As Eleanor helped me into the gown, I caught sight of myself in the three-way mirror and gasped. The woman staring back at me was a stranger. Elegant, sophisticated, beautiful in a way I'd never imagined possible. "Oh my," Eleanor breathed. "Dr. Hale has excellent taste." The dress hugged my curves perfectly, the deep blue bringing out the warmth in my brown skin. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. "Now for shoes," Eleanor said, producing a pair of heels that looked like they belonged in a museum. "And then we'll work on hair and makeup." 3 hours later, I barely recognized myself. My usually wild curls had been tamed into an elegant updo. My makeup was flawless but natural, and the dress made me feel like royalty. "Dr. Hale will pick you up at 7, Eleanor said, handing me a small clutch purse. "Remember, you belong there just as much as anyone else." But did I? As I rode the subway home in my regular clothes, the fancy dress carefully wrapped in tissue paper, doubt crept in like fog. What was I thinking? I was Marisol Rivera from the Bronx, not some socialite who belonged at charity galas. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. I stood in front of my tiny bathroom mirror, applying the makeup Eleanor had taught me to use, when my phone buzzed. "I'm downstairs." Catherine's text was brief, professional. My hands shook as I slipped into the dress one final time. Mama watched from her wheelchair, her eyes bright with tears. "Mija, you look like a princess," she whispered in Spanish. "It's just pretend, Mama," I said, but even I could hear the uncertainty in my voice. "Sometimes pretend becomes real," she replied, squeezing my hand. The elevator ride down felt eternal. When the doors opened, Catherine was waiting by a sleek black car, and I nearly stumbled. She wore a stunning emerald dress that complemented her blonde hair perfectly, but it was the way she looked at me that made my breath catch. Her green eyes widened, traveling from my face down to my shoes and back up again. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "You look," she started, then stopped, shaking her head slightly. "Beautiful. You look beautiful, Marisol." Heat flooded my cheeks. "Thank you." "So do you." The driver opened the car door, and Catherine gestured for me to enter first. As I slid across the leather seat, I caught a whiff of her perfume. Something expensive and intoxicating that made my head spin. "Are you nervous?" she asked as the car pulled into traffic. "Terrified," I admitted. She turned to study my profile. "Don't be. Just be yourself." "Myself doesn't belong at charity galas." "Tonight you do." Her voice was firm, certain. "You're my guest, Marisol. That means you belong wherever I belong." The conviction in her tone surprised me. This wasn't just about maintaining appearances anymore. Something had shifted, though I couldn't put my finger on what. As we approached the hotel, I saw photographers lined up outside, their cameras flashing like lightning. My stomach dropped. "There will be pictures," Catherine said, noticing my panic. "Just smile and stay close to me." The car stopped, and suddenly the door was opening. Catherine stepped out first, immediately posing for the cameras with practiced ease. Then she turned and extended her hand to me. The moment I emerged from the car, the flashing intensified. I heard murmurs from the crowd, saw heads turning our way. Catherine's hand found the small of my back, steadying me. "Smile," she whispered near my ear, her breath warm against my skin. I smiled, and the cameras went wild. As we walked up the red carpet together, I realized this wasn't just about $10,000 anymore. The way Catherine looked at me, protected me, guided me through this foreign world, it felt real. Too real. And that terrified me more than any camera ever could. The ballroom took my breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across cream-colored walls, while round tables draped in white silk stretched as far as I could see. Women in designer gowns and men in perfect tuxedos moved through the space like they owned it, which, considering the price of admission, they probably did. Catherine's hand remained on my lower back as she guided me through the crowd, introducing me with a confidence that made my head spin. "This is Marisol Rivera," she'd say, and I'd shake hands with surgeons, hospital board members, and philanthropists whose names I'd only seen in newspapers. "How do you know Catherine?" asked Dr. Margaret Thornton, the chief of cardiology, her eyes scanning me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "We met through mutual friends." Catherine answered smoothly before I could stumble through a response, but I caught the way Dr. Thornton's eyebrows raised, the subtle glance she exchanged with her husband. They knew I didn't belong here. They could smell it on me like cheap perfume. "Excuse us," Catherine said, steering me toward the bar. "Champagne?" I nodded, grateful for something to do with my hands. As the bartender poured, Catherine leaned closer. "You're doing perfectly," she murmured, her lips nearly brushing my ear. "Stop overthinking." The champagne bubbles tickled my nose, but it was Catherine's proximity that made me dizzy. When had she started standing so close? When had I started noticing the way her dress hugged her curves, the elegant line of her neck? "Doctor." "Hale!" A booming voice interrupted my dangerous thoughts. Dr. Richard Blackwood, the hospital's chief administrator, approached with his wife in tow. "And who is this lovely young lady?" "Marisol Rivera," Catherine said, her hand moving to rest on my waist. The touch sent electricity through the silk of my dress. "Charming," Mrs. Blackwood said, though her smile didn't reach her eyes. "What do you do, dear?" The question hung in the air like a blade. What did I do? I cleaned toilets and scrubbed floors. I made beds and washed dishes. I was everything these people paid others to be so they wouldn't have to think about it. "I'm between careers at the moment," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "How interesting," Dr. Blackwood said, though his tone suggested it was anything but. "And how did you meet our Catherine?" Our Catherine. Like she belonged to them, to this world of marble and money. I started, but Catherine cut me off. "We met at a medical conference," she said smoothly. Marisol was presenting research on healthcare accessibility in underserved communities. The lie rolled off her tongue so easily, so convincingly, that even I almost believed it. Dr. Blackwood's expression shifted to something resembling respect. "Fascinating work," he said. "We should discuss it sometime." After they moved on, I stared at Catherine in amazement. "Healthcare accessibility?" She shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. "You'd be surprised how much you can learn about healthcare gaps just by living them." The comment was casual, but something in her tone made me look at her more closely. For a moment her mask slipped and I saw something raw underneath. Understanding. Maybe even pain. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced over the sound system. "Please take your seats for dinner." Our table was near the front, surrounded by the hospital's elite. As we sat down, Catherine's thigh brushed against mine, and I had to grip my champagne glass to keep from trembling. The conversation flowed around us. Medical breakthroughs, hospital politics, vacation homes in the Hamptons. I listened, occasionally nodding, but mostly I watched Catherine, the way she commanded attention without demanding it. How she could make a cutting remark sound like a compliment. The graceful way she moved her hands when she spoke. "Don't you think so, Marisol?" Dr. Thornton's voice cut through my observations. I blinked, realizing everyone at the table was looking at me. "I'm sorry?" "About the importance of diversity in medical research," Catherine said quietly, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my stomach flutter. "Oh, yes," I said, my mind racing. I think medicine works best when it reflects the people it serves. When doctors understand not just the science, but the lives behind the symptoms." The table fell silent. Dr. Thornton nodded slowly, and I saw something like approval in her expression. "Beautifully put," she said. Under the table, Catherine's hand found mine, squeezing gently. The touch was brief, probably meant to be reassuring, but it sent fire racing up my arm. As the evening progressed, I found myself relaxing despite the surreal circumstances. The food was incredible, the wine flowed freely, and Catherine kept looking at me like I was the most interesting person in the room. During the speeches, she leaned close to whisper commentary that made me bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud. Her breath was warm against my ear, her perfume intoxicating. "Having fun?" she asked during a particularly boring presentation about hospital fundraising goals. "More than I expected," I admitted. "Good." Her smile was different now, softer, more genuine than the polished version she wore for everyone else. "You deserve to have fun, Marisol." The way she said my name, like it was something precious, made my heart skip. This was dangerous territory. I was supposed to be playing a role, earning my $10,000. I wasn't supposed to be falling for my employer. But as Catherine's fingers brushed mine while reaching for her wine glass, as her eyes lingered on my face when she thought I wasn't looking, I realized I wasn't the only one crossing lines tonight. The question was, what happened when the evening ended, and we had to return to our real lives? The orchestra began playing as dinner plates were cleared away, and couples started moving toward the dance floor. I watched them glide across the polished marble, their movements fluid and practiced, and my stomach clenched with panic. "I don't dance," I whispered to Catherine as Dr. Blackwood led his wife onto the floor. "Neither do I," she replied, but her eyes were fixed on the swaying couples with an expression I couldn't read. Dr. Hale, a young resident I recognized from hospital visits, approached our table, his face flushed with wine and confidence. "Would you honor me with a dance?" Catherine's smile was polite but cold. "Thank you, Dr. Morrison, but I'm quite content here," he persisted, emboldened by alcohol. "Come on, it's for charity. One dance won't kill you." I saw Catherine's jaw tighten, watched her fingers curl around her wine glass. She was trapped by politeness and professional courtesy, unable to refuse without causing a scene. "Actually," I heard myself say, standing up before I could lose my nerve, "Catherine promised me the first dance." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Dr. Morrison's mouth fell open slightly, and I felt the attention of nearby tables shift to us. Catherine's eyes widened, but then something sparked in them, surprise, gratitude, and something else that made my pulse race. "Of course," she said, rising gracefully and extending her hand to me. "Shall we?" My hand trembled as I took hers, but her grip was steady, confident. She led me onto the dance floor as conversations quieted around us. I was acutely aware of every eye following our movement, every whispered comment. "I really don't know how to dance," I murmured as she turned to face me. "Follow my lead," she said softly, placing one hand on my waist and taking my other hand in hers. The music was slow, romantic, something classical that seemed to wrap around us like silk. Catherine moved with the same precision she brought to surgery, guiding me through steps I somehow managed to follow. "You're a natural," she said, and I realized we were closer now, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "Of dancing? Of this?" I gestured vaguely around us, but we both knew I meant more than just the gala. Her hand tightened on my waist, pulling me infinitesimally closer. "Me too." The admission was barely a whisper, but it hit me like a thunderbolt. Dr. Catherine Hale, the woman who performed life-saving surgeries without flinching, was afraid. Of this. Of us. "Catherine," I started, but she shook her head slightly. "Not here," she said, glancing around at the watching faces. Too many eyes. But even as she said it, her thumb traced a small circle on my hand, and I felt that simple touch everywhere. The music swelled around us, and for a moment, The rest of the world faded away. There was only Catherine's hand in mine, her body moving against me, the way she looked at me like I was something precious and dangerous all at once. "You're beautiful," she said suddenly, so quietly I almost missed it. Heat flooded my cheeks. "Catherine, I know I shouldn't say that. I know this is complicated and probably wrong, and—" "It's not wrong," I interrupted, surprising myself with my boldness. Her eyes searched mine, looking for something. Permission, maybe, or confirmation that I felt this too. Whatever she found there made her breath catch. The song ended, but neither of us moved to separate. We stood there, hands still joined, bodies still close, while applause echoed around us. It wasn't until Dr. Thornton appeared beside us that we finally stepped apart. "Lovely dancing," she said, but her expression was calculating. "You two make quite a striking pair." "Thank you," Catherine replied smoothly, though I noticed her hand shake slightly as she reached for her wineglass. As the evening progressed, I became increasingly aware of the scrutiny we were under. Conversation stopped when we passed. Eyes followed our every movement. The hospital's social hierarchy was rigid, and my presence here, especially my obvious connection to Catherine, was disrupting the natural order. "They're talking about us," I murmured during a lull in conversation. "Let them talk," Catherine said, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "This could hurt your career." She turned to look at me fully, her expression serious. "My career isn't the only thing that matters, Marisol." The weight of that statement settled between us like a stone. She was risking everything, her reputation, her standing in the medical community, her carefully constructed life. For what? For me? For this thing growing between us that neither of us fully understood? "Doctor." "Hale?" Dr. Blackwood appeared at our table again, his wife notably absent. "Might I have a word? Privately?" Catherine's face went carefully blank. "Of course." She squeezed my hand briefly before following him to a quiet corner of the ballroom. I watched them talk, saw the way Dr. Blackwood gestured, the way Catherine's posture grew more rigid with each word. When she returned, her face was pale but composed. "What did he say?" I asked. "Nothing important," she replied, but her voice was tight. I knew she was lying. Whatever Dr. Blackwood had said, it wasn't nothing. It was about us, about tonight, about the lines we'd crossed on that dance floor. "Maybe we should leave," I suggested. "No." Her response was immediate, fierce. "We're not running away. Not from them, not from this." She reached for my hand again, right there at the table where anyone could see, and laced our fingers together. "Whatever happens," she said. Her eyes locked on mine. Tonight was worth it. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized what she was saying. This wasn't just about maintaining appearances anymore. This wasn't about $10,000 or charity galas or professional obligations. This was about us. About whatever was happening between the renowned surgeon and her housekeeper. About the way she looked at me like I hung the moon, and the way I was falling for her despite every rational thought in my head. But as I squeezed her hand in return, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were dancing on the edge of a cliff, and one wrong step would send us both tumbling into the unknown. The ride home was suffocatingly quiet. Catherine stared out the window at the city lights, her jaw tight, while I sat frozen in my corner of the back seat, still processing what had happened in those final moments at the gala. Dr. Blackwood's private conversation had been anything but private. I'd watched from across the room as other board members joined them, their expressions grave, their glances in my direction unmistakably hostile. Whatever they'd said to Catherine had shaken her more than she was letting on. "Catherine," I started as we pulled up to my building. "Don't." Her voice was sharp, cutting. "Just don't." The driver opened my door, and I hesitated, my hand on the handle. "Will I see you Monday?" She finally looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes made my stomach drop. Regret. Fear. And something that looked dangerously close to goodbye. "I think it's best if we maintain some distance for a while," she said carefully. Distance. The word hit me like a physical blow. "What does that mean?" It means I made a mistake tonight. I let my personal feelings compromise my professional judgment, and now we're both paying the price. A mistake? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Is that what I am to you? Her composure cracked for just a moment, and I saw the pain underneath. Marisol? No, I get it. I stepped out of the car, my legs unsteady in the borrowed heels. Thank you for the evening, Dr. Hale. And for the money. I slammed the door before she could respond and walked toward my building without looking back, but I heard the car idling behind me, heard her window roll down. Marisol, wait! I kept walking. By Monday morning, I'd convinced myself it was for the best. Catherine was right. We lived in different worlds, and Saturday night had been nothing more than an elaborate fantasy. I was Marisol Rivera from the Bronx, and she was Dr. Catherine Hale. The math was simple. But when I arrived at her penthouse with my cleaning supplies, she was gone. A note on the kitchen counter, written in her precise handwriting, made my heart sink. Marisol, I've arranged for a cleaning service to take over. Your final payment, plus the agreed amount from Saturday, is in the envelope. Thank you for your years of service, CH. The envelope contained $15,000, $5,000 more than we'd agreed on. Guilt money, I realized. Payment for services rendered and feelings discarded. I sank into one of her pristine white chairs and let myself cry for the first time since Saturday night. Not just for the money or the job, but for the way she'd looked at me on that dance floor. For the possibility of something real that had been snatched away before it could fully bloom. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Dr. Margaret Thornton. I'd like to speak with you about Dr. Hale. Can we meet? Against my better judgment, I agreed. Dr. Thornton chose a small cafe in Midtown, far from the hospital and Catherine's usual haunts. She was already seated when I arrived, her silver hair perfectly styled, her expression unreadable. Thank you for coming, she said, as I sat down across from her. I wasn't sure you would. What do you want? I asked, too emotionally drained for pleasantries, to understand what happened Saturday night. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Catherine Hale is one of the finest surgeons I've ever worked with. She's also one of the most guarded people I know. But the way she looked at you, she trailed off, shaking her head. It doesn't matter now, I said. She made it clear it was a mistake. Did she? Dr. Thornton's eyebrows rose. Because from where I sat, it looked like a woman finally allowing herself to feel something real. You don't understand. I'm her housekeeper. Was her housekeeper. We don't belong in the same world. Bullshit. The profanity was so unexpected, so at odds with her refined appearance that I blinked in surprise. I've been in medicine for 30 years, she continued. I've seen brilliant doctors destroy themselves trying to maintain impossible standards. Catherine is heading down that same path. What does that have to do with me? Everything. She reached into her purse and pulled out a tablet, showing me a photo from Saturday night. It was Catherine and me on the dance floor, and the look on Catherine's face, it took my breath away. She was looking at me like I was her whole world. She's been different since Saturday, Dr. Thornton said. Distracted, unhappy. The board thinks they've solved a problem by pressuring her to distance herself from you, but they've created a bigger one. What kind of problem? The kind where a brilliant surgeon starts making mistakes because her heart is broken. My chest tightened. Her heart isn't broken. She barely knows me, doesn't she? Dr. Thornton studied my face carefully. You cleaned her home for 3 years. You think she didn't notice you? Didn't see your kindness, your strength, your intelligence? I thought about the way Catherine had defended me at the gala, the lies she'd told to protect me, the way she'd said my name like it was something precious. It doesn't matter, I said again. But my voice lacked conviction. It's the only thing that matters, Dr. Thornton leaned back in her chair. The question is, what are you going to do about it? There's nothing I can do. She made her choice. She made the safe choice, the expected choice. That doesn't mean it was the right choice. Dr. Thornton stood, leaving money on the table for her untouched coffee. For what it's worth, she said, I think you're exactly what Catherine needs. The question is whether you're brave enough to fight for it. After she left, I sat in the cafe for hours, staring at my phone, at Catherine's contact information that I'd never deleted. Dr. Thornton's words echoed in my head. Are you brave enough to fight for it? I thought about Saturday night, about the way Catherine had held me on that dance floor, about the vulnerability in her eyes when she'd admitted she was scared too. Maybe Dr. Thornton was right. Maybe Catherine hadn't made the right choice. Maybe it was time for me to make one of my own. I stood outside Mount Sinai Hospital for 20 minutes, watching doctors and nurses flow in and out of the main entrance like a river of scrubs in white coats. My hands shook as I clutched the visitor's badge the receptionist had given me, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. You looking for someone, miss? A security guard approached, his expression kind but curious. Dr. Catherine Hale, I managed. I have something that belongs to her. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did have something of hers. Her heart, maybe, if Dr. Thornton was right. And she definitely had mine. She's in surgery, he said, checking his watch. Been in there for about 3 hours. Could be a while longer. 3 hours. I found a chair in the surgical waiting area and settled in, ignoring the curious glances from families waiting for news of their loved ones. I'd waited 3 years to really see Catherine Hale. I could wait a few more hours. At 4:17 p.m., she emerged from the surgical wing, still in her scrubs, her hair tucked under a surgical cap. She looked exhausted, drained, and when she saw me sitting there, she froze like she'd seen a ghost. Marisol? Her voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing here? I stood up, my legs unsteady. We need to talk. She glanced around the busy corridor, acutely aware of the eyes on us. This isn't the place. Then where? I interrupted. Your penthouse? Oh, wait. I'm not allowed there anymore. Your office? I'm sure that would go over well with the board. Pain flashed across her features. Marisol, please. No, you please. I stepped closer, lowering my voice but not my intensity. You don't get to dance with me like that. Look at me like that. And then disappear behind a check and a note. I was protecting you. From what? From feeling something real for once in your life. The words hung between us like a challenge. Catherine's composure was cracking, and I could see the woman from Saturday night struggling to break free from Dr. Hale's professional armor. There's a coffee shop across the street, she said finally. Give me 10 minutes to change. The coffee shop was nearly empty, just a few medical students hunched over textbooks and an elderly man reading a newspaper. Catherine had traded her scrubs for jeans and a sweater, and without her professional armor, she looked younger, more vulnerable. You shouldn't have come to the hospital, she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup like it was an anchor. Where else was I supposed to go? You fired me, remember? I didn't fire you. You replaced me with a cleaning service and left me a note. What would you call it? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. I was trying to do the right thing. For who? For the board? For your precious reputation? For you. The words exploded out of her, loud enough that the medical students looked up. She lowered her voice, leaning forward. Do you have any idea what they said to me Saturday night? What they threatened? Tell me. They said I was having a midlife crisis, that I was embarrassing myself in the hospital by parading around with... She stopped, her face flushing. With what? Say it. With the help, she whispered, and I saw how much the words cost her. The phrase hit me like a slap, but I forced myself not to flinch. And you believed them? No. God, no. But they have power, Marisol. They could destroy my career, make sure I never work in medicine again. And for what? For a relationship that could never work anyway? Why couldn't it work? She stared at me like I'd asked why water was wet. Because we're from different worlds. Because you deserve better than to be someone's scandal. Because you're scared. The accusation hung in the air between us. Catherine's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it. Instead, she laughed bitterly. Of course I'm scared. I've spent my entire life building something, and one night with you made me want to tear it all down. Maybe it needs to be torn down. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who'd lose everything, aren't I? I leaned forward, matching her intensity. You think I don't have anything to lose? You think Saturday night didn't change everything for me too? Marisol, I fell in love with you. The words came out in a rush before I could stop them. Not Dr. Catherine Hale, the famous surgeon. You, the woman who gets nervous when she doesn't know what to say, who lies to protect people she cares about, who dances like she's afraid the music might stop. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. Don't say that. Why? Because it makes this harder? Because it means you're not the only one taking a risk? Because it makes me want things I can't have. Who says you can't have them? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. A gesture so vulnerable it made my chest ache. The board made it very clear that any further association with you would result in my immediate termination. So find another job. It's not that simple. It is that simple. I reached across the table and took her hand, not caring who might see. You're brilliant, Catherine. Any hospital in the country would be lucky to have you. But you're so afraid of losing what you have that you can't see what you could gain. She stared down at our joined hands. What if it doesn't work? What if we try this and it falls apart? What if it doesn't? What if it's everything we never knew we wanted? For a moment, I saw hope flicker in her eyes. Then she pulled her hand away. I can't, she whispered. I'm sorry, but I can't. She stood up, leaving money on the table, and walked toward the door. But just before she reached it, she turned back. For what it's worth, she said, her voice breaking, I fell in love with you too. Then she was gone, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and a heart that felt like it was shattering into a million pieces. But as I sat there, replaying her words, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. If Catherine Hale thought she could walk away from love this easily, she was about to learn just how stubborn a girl from the Bronx could be. 2 weeks later, I was scrubbing floors at a downtown office building when my phone buzzed with a news alert that made my heart stop. Renowned surgeon Dr. Catherine Hale resigns from Mount Sinai Hospital. I dropped my mop and called Dr. Thornton immediately. I was wondering when you'd call, she said, answering on the first ring. What happened? Why did she resign? Because she finally remembered who she is underneath all that armor. Dr. Thornton's voice was warm with approval. She walked into the board meeting this morning and told them exactly what they could do with their ultimatum, but her career will be just fine. I may have mentioned to a few colleagues at Presbyterian that Catherine might be looking for a change of scenery. Funny how word travels in this business. My hands were shaking. Where is she now? That, my dear, is something you'll have to find out for yourself. I found her at the small park near her penthouse, sitting on a bench overlooking the East River. She was wearing jeans and a Columbia University sweatshirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, freer, and absolutely terrified. Dr. Thornton told me what you did, I said, sitting down beside her. I'm unemployed, she said without looking at me. Possibly unemployable. I just threw away 15 years of building my reputation for what? She finally turned to face me, and I saw everything in her eyes. Love, fear, hope, desperation. For the chance that maybe, just maybe, you meant what you said in that coffee shop. My heart soared. Every word. I don't know how to do this, Marisol. I don't know how to be in love. I don't know how to build a life with someone. I've been alone for so long. I silenced her with a kiss, soft and sweet, and full of all the words we'd been too afraid to say. When we broke apart, she was crying. I love you, she whispered. I love your strength and your kindness, and the way you see right through all my bullshit. I love that you're brave enough to fight for what you want, even when what you want is a mess like me. You're not a mess, I said, wiping her tears with my thumb. You're just human. And I love every complicated, brilliant, beautiful part of you. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure it out together. I took her hand, lacing our fingers together the way I'd wanted to do for weeks. You find a new job, probably a better one. I finish my GED and maybe think about college. We take it one day at a time. The money, keep it. Consider it payment for the best night of my life. She laughed, the sound bright and free. Just the one night? Well, I said, leaning closer, I'm hoping for a few more. 6 months later, I was sitting in the front row of a small auditorium, watching Catherine give a presentation on healthcare accessibility to a room full of medical students. She'd taken a position at a community hospital in Queens, working with underserved populations, and she'd never been happier. The most important thing you can learn, she was saying, is that medicine isn't just about treating symptoms. It's about seeing the whole person, understanding their world, their struggles, their strength. Her eyes found mine in the audience, and she smiled. Not her polished professional smile, but the real one, the one that was just for me. Sometimes, she continued, the people who teach us the most about healing are the ones who've never set foot in a medical school. After her presentation, as students crowded around her with questions, I waited by the door. When she finally broke free, she walked straight to me and kissed me, right there in front of everyone. "How'd I do?" she asked. "Perfect," I said. "But then, you always are." "Not always." She tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "But I'm learning." As we walked out together, her hand in mine, I thought about that night at the gala that had changed everything, about the $10,000 that had bought us both something we'd never expected to find. "Any regrets?" I asked. Catherine stopped walking and turned to face me, her green eyes bright with love and certainty. "Only one," she said. "That it took me so long to realize that the best thing in my life was right there in my kitchen all along." I kissed her again, there on the sidewalk in Queens, surrounded by the sounds of real life, car horns and children playing and the elevated train rumbling overhead. It wasn't glamorous or elegant or anything like that charity gala. It was perfect. And as we walked home together, to our apartment, our life, our future, I realized that sometimes the most beautiful transformations happen not when you put on a fancy dress, but when you finally have the courage to take off all your masks and let someone see who you really are. The girl from the Bronx and the renowned surgeon. Against all odds, we'd found our way to each other, and we were just getting started. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of love, conquering all odds. Share this video with someone who believes in the power of true love, and let us know in the comments, what would you risk for love? Thank you for joining Marisol and Catherine on their journey. Until next time, keep believing in happily ever after.